What is pain? If you think you know what pain is, you might be surprised by this video. Everyone has felt pain. We know that touching a hot stove, twisting an ankle, or cutting a finger hurts. But what is actually happening when we get injured? Pain is a protector. We need pain. It protects us from all of the things that are dangerous in the world. Put your hand on a hot stove, and the feeling of intense pain will cause you to pull your hand away before you even have time to think. Here, pain is saving you from further injury. How is that pain generated? What parts of our bodies are involved? Think about this example. Imagine you are running from a lion. You step in a hole and twist your ankle. Do you think you will get pain? Will this pain stop you from running? Not if your life is in danger. In a situation like this, even though you are injured, your brain will choose to not feel any pain because it is making a choice to save your life. Wait, you mean pain is a choice? What? Neuroscience, the science of how the brain works, teaches us that pain is what the brain actually creates in response to certain signals. When we use the word signals, we are talking about electrical messages that the body sends via the nerves to the brain. When the brain gets incoming signals of danger from some kind of tissue damage, it generates the feeling of pain, usually very, very quickly, within a millisecond. Okay, good enough. You get that, right? But what about the guy being chased by the lion? What happened there? Our brains are crafty enough to choose which signals to pay attention to and which signals to ignore. In other words, what is the bigger danger at the moment will dictate what the brain chooses to focus on and respond to. Cool, huh? Clever brain. It knows when to turn on pain and when to not turn on pain. And the brain also decides when to turn off pain. Also clever, most of the time. Why do we say that? Because sometimes the brain doesn't turn off pain, even after an injury has healed. And this can cause a situation where pain becomes chronic. Not good. Not so clever brain. This is a big problem, as you will learn more about in the next video. One final thing to know about pain. Now that you know that it is the brain that creates pain, you also need to understand this. All pain is real. Repeating, all pain is real. For someone who has been living with pain for a long period of time, what we call chronic pain, anyone who says that pain is all in your head is either dismissive or judgmental, or both. People with chronic pain are not faking it or making it up. They don't want to live with pain, and it is not their fault. People with chronic pain have a real condition, and there is real treatment. This type of pain is called neural circuit pain, and our goal is to help you understand where this type of pain comes from and how it can be cured. We have come a long way in understanding what pain is and where it comes from. We used to think that all pain came from a physical injury in the body, but that's not true. It's a bit more complicated than that. Here's a story that we know you'll find interesting. A construction worker in England stepped on a nail, which pierced all the way through his boot, sticking out the other side. Screaming in agony and staring in disbelief at the nail sticking through his boot, they rushed him to the hospital, where he was given strong pain-killing medicines. When they removed the boot, they were astonished to find that there was no injury at all. The nail went through his boot all right, but it miraculously went right between his toes. There wasn't a scratch on his foot. When he was looking at the nail sticking through his boot, he was in severe pain. His pain was real, just like all pain is real. But in this case, he'd been tricked into thinking he'd gotten a really bad injury. Why did this construction worker have so much pain? The reason is that our brains have a quirk in them. Research shows that when we think we are injured, we can experience a tremendous amount of pain, even if there is no physical injury. A group of neuroscientists recently did a fascinating experiment. They put people who had just been through a difficult breakup into a functional MRI machine that can tell which parts of the brain are active. They showed these people a picture of someone with whom they had just had a difficult breakup or divorce. They mapped the parts of the brain that were activated by the picture. Then, they applied a really unpleasant stimulus to the arm or the leg, like something really hot or sharp, and the exact same parts of the brain lit up. It's no wonder then that people say a breakup hurts. This study teaches us that when we get an emotional injury, such as when we are rejected or intimidated or disappointed, the same parts of the brain that cause pain are activated as when we break a bone or cut ourselves. Our brain's danger signals can be turned on when we are in emotional danger, just as our pain can be turned on when we are in physical danger. That is how we are programmed. The part of the brain that controls the majority of our pain experience is our subconscious brain. This part of the brain does its own thing. We don't control it, and it is not our fault when it makes mistakes. It's just our brain. Clever brain or pesky, troublesome brain? It depends how you look at it. A relative might be a pain in the neck, and our brain may create neck pain to alert us or protect us from them. An injustice might make us sick to our stomach, and we may get stomach pain. Going to school can feel dangerous for a shy child, and they might get headaches. In each of these examples, these people are experiencing real pain, but not from a physical injury. We call this neural circuit pain. These experiences of physical pain in response to emotional danger are common. They happen to just about everyone at some times. It is part of being human, having a brain and a body. When our subconscious brain feels we need protection of some kind, it will create a message. Our subconscious brain can't speak to us directly, so it uses the language of pain to alert us that we need to do something different. Our brain is trying to help us. Good brain. But it's up to us to interpret and understand the brain's message. If our brain is trying to tell us that our work situation is dangerous and it produces back pain, our job is to figure that out and act to deal with the situation. If we don't understand the message, we may get confused and think that we have actually injured our back. We may start getting unnecessary medical treatment, like injections and surgery, which makes us worry more and more about our back. If this continues for more than a few months, this turns into chronic pain. It is very important for us to understand all the ways that our brain and body can experience pain. It requires an understanding of how the brain works, and an understanding that a painful message can be received even when there is no physical injury. Before you go and diagnose yourself with neural circuit pain, it's really wise to get a complete medical evaluation. You need to see someone who understands the modern science of pain and understands where it comes from. With a thorough history and physical exam, the right doctor should be able to help you understand whether or not neural circuit pain is a condition that you should be treated for. Did you ever notice that something gets stuck inside your brain? Like a song. We will rock you. Or a thought. I'm worried that I'm sick. I'm worried that I'm sick. I'm worried that I'm sick. Or an itch that you can't stop scratching, but the more you scratch, the more it itches? These are examples of our brains at work, shaping the way that we experience life. Scientists call this predictive coding. Predictive coding is a theory of brain function in which the brain is constantly generating and updating a mental model of the environment. That's a scientific way of saying that our brain is directly responsible for the reality that we live and breathe. Sounds weird, right? Let us explain. Here's a personal experience of the feeling of surprise that is generated when our brain has its own thoughts about something, when the reality is very different. Howard's wife woke up early one morning and had her usual breakfast, slices of apple, yogurt, and granola. That morning, she had an extra slice, came up to the darkened bedroom, and fed it to Howard. Howard didn't see the slice in the dark, and as soon as he took a bite, he got a rotten taste in his mouth and tried to spit it out. It turned out that Howard's wife had a sliced peach that morning rather than an apple. Howard's brain was expecting a crunchy apple, and it got a soft peach. Even though the peach was sweet, his brain was worried about a rotten apple, and created the rotten taste to warn him and protect him from eating dangerous food. It completely ignored the sweetness of the peach and focused on the soft, squishy feel because it was unexpected. Weird, right? The brain has an internal drive to predict what we will experience right now and in the next few minutes, and there are a few well-known examples of how it can be absolutely fooled. If you're not convinced, there are some classic examples that can be explored at www.illusionsindex.org. We particularly like the cylinder and checkerboard example of something that you just can't believe, even when you know you are being fooled. The theory of predictive coding is really important when it comes to understanding chronic pain. Let's say that you hurt your back one day, and for the next few days you have a lot of lower back pain. It's much, much worse every time you try to bend over and put on your shoes. Gradually it gets better, but after several months, every time you bend over, you still feel that familiar sense of tightness and pain in the back. Common sense tells us that the injury has healed by now, but why are we still experiencing pain, and only with certain movements? Predictive coding. The brain lived the experience of pain with forward bending immediately after the injury, and because it was really unpleasant, it wants to avoid the same sensations in the future. In fact, it continues to predict that pain will occur in the lower back with bending long after the original injury has healed. This goes back to the fact that everyone has machinery for sensing danger. It's there to protect us. It stops us from walking into traffic, picking up snakes, and eating rotten apples. The danger signal is particularly loud when we have been injured, like when we touch a hot stove. And danger signals can be really sticky. Once they get in, it can be hard sometimes to get them out. Danger signals are controlled by predictive coding. Other terms for predictive coding are things like developing a habit or muscle memory. A habit is a neural circuit in the brain that is learned through repetition, becomes almost automatic, is triggered in certain situations. Scientists like the term conditioned response, but habit or muscle memory is just as good. Pavlov rang a buzzer whenever he fed his dogs. Soon enough, the dogs began to salivate when they heard the buzzer, even if there was no food around. When an environmental cue is linked to a brain reaction, that connection is formed in the neural circuits of the brain, and neurons that are fired together become wired together. Let's say that someone has a stressful day and gets a headache while shopping in a large store with bright lights. Their brain can get wired to associate bright lights with headaches. Over time, they may start to get headaches every time they are in bright light. Predictive coding. Finally, the more one fears the triggers of pain, such as bending over and bright lights, the worse the pain will get, as the neural connections get stronger and stronger. The good news is that there are simple methods for rewiring these connections in the brain and eliminating pain. If you have watched some of our other videos, you now know more about how the brain works. You know that all pain is real, and that all pain is actually created by the brain. And you know that stress and emotions can cause the brain to generate pain even when there is no physical damage in the body. But how do you know if you might have a mind-body disorder? These ideas are very different from what most people think about pain, and even what most doctors think about pain. So how can you tell if your pain is due to an injury or a structural problem in the body, or if you are in fact suffering from neural circuit pain? Good question. Important question. Here is some guidance on how to figure this out. If you have a pain, like a back or neck ache, or a stomach ache or headache, you want to make sure that this is not caused by a structural problem, such as a fracture, a tumor, an infection, or some other major disease. So it's always necessary to see your doctor to get checked out. In general, if there is no evidence for a tumor, a fracture, an infection, or some significant structural problem, it is likely that the pain is not due to a structural problem. We learned in one of the other videos that an abnormal MRI of the neck or back is often actually normal in most people. In fact, these mildly abnormal MRIs occur in most people who have no back pain at all. So if there is no clearly identifiable structural problem, this is good news. Now you know what you don't have. Getting medical treatment for a physical condition, like an operation, when the pain is actually caused by the brain, is not a good idea. We all know of people who have had operations for back pain, only to have more pain after the operation than they had before. But what do you have? Now we can go even further. You can determine if you do have a neural circuit pain problem. How in the world do I do that, you might ask? Good question. It's not often as difficult as you might think. Let's compare these situations. Sarah has a broken arm. It is tender to touch all the time. It is swollen. The pain is always in the same location. It is also constant due to the acute injury, and it is always worse when she moves it. This is structural pain. Federico has neural circuit pain in his neck. Some days he wakes up with pain, but other days he doesn't have any pain at all. Why? Because the subconscious brain can turn pain on or off, and in his case, there is not a structural problem. Susie has neural circuit pain in her lower back. She has no pain in the morning, then it gets worse in the afternoon, only to go away again in the evening. She sometimes wakes up with it in the middle of the night. Her brain is turning pain on and off at different times. James has neural circuit pain in his leg. He had it every day for 6 months. Then he went on vacation, and it was much less for 2 weeks. On the plane home, his leg started hurting really bad. His brain felt less stress on vacation and turned down the pain. But when facing a return to his stressful job, his brain cranked up the pain. Rosie has neural circuit pain in her bottom. She has no pain while lying down, but when she sits for work, she gets more and more pain the longer she sits. However, she can ride a bicycle without pain and can sit in a movie with little pain. Her pain is inconsistent, therefore neural circuit pain. Elizabeth has face pain that gets much worse when the wind blows on it, or she hears loud sounds. These are triggering the brain to turn on the pain. Zach has pain in both of his arms one morning, but by the afternoon, the pain has moved to his legs, and later to his neck. His brain is turning on some neural circuits for pain and turning off others. Alice gets headaches when the weather changes, or when she eats certain foods. These are triggering the brain to generate pain. Alex gets stomach pain just before having to give a presentation at work, or when he has to attend a family gathering. His brain is afraid of these events and creates pain as a warning sign. Maria had pain every day between her shoulder blades for 2 months. It began when her husband had surgery, and she feared he would die. Gradually it got better, and often it was not there. But as soon as she thought about the pain, it would reappear. This is her brain. Once a doctor has helped you to be sure that there is no serious structural problem, there are many clues you can use to confirm that you have a neural circuit disorder. There are certain disorders that are almost always neural circuit disorders, such as tension and migraine headaches, irritable bowel syndrome, fibromyalgia, and insomnia. There are many other disorders that are usually, but not always, caused by neural circuits, such as pelvic pain syndromes, chronic neck and back pain, chronic stomach pains, and heartburn, chronic facial or dental pain, chronic regional pain syndrome, dizziness, tinnitus, and painful bladder syndrome. Clues that a good detective doctor can use to confirm a neural circuit disorder are pains or symptoms that turn on and off, are inconsistently present, occur in a large area of the body, are triggered by stress or innocuous stimuli, shift in location, vary in intensity or quality. Therefore, everyone should know that some pains are due to structural problems, and other pains are due to neural circuits in the brain. Chronic pain is often caused by neural circuits when there is no damage in the body. This is more common than you might think. A good team consisting of you and your doctor can be good detectives and figure this out. Your health and well-being depend on making an accurate diagnosis. The treatment for a structural disorder is medical treatment, but the treatment for a neural circuit disorder is different. The treatment for it is to reprogram your brain to unlearn the pain. What can you do if you have chronic pain? What's worse than living with chronic pain? Not much. We know that chronic pain affects all parts of someone's life: their mood, their ability to move or have social engagements, their ability to laugh and enjoy life, their ability to work and play. Is this a hopeless situation? Some people would say so. There has been an understanding in the medical community for the past few decades that chronic pain is not fixable, that anyone with chronic pain just has to live with it and just try to cope the best that they can. This is a very depressing thought, and actually, getting this news from a doctor just makes the whole situation worse. But is it true that chronic pain is always chronic? That is, just goes on forever and ever? Is this always correct? Or is this just an opinion? We know that there are some people who have such severe physical disorders that they really do have to simply cope as well as they can. For example, if someone has severe lung disease, they will have to live with less pulmonary function and less ability to exercise. But of course, they would want to get good medical treatment to improve what lung function they do have. And of course, they want to do as much exercise as possible in order to build up their stamina and improve their quality of life. In the case of pain, if the pain is caused by a severe medical problem, such as cancer that has spread to bones, medical treatment can help, but it may not get rid of the pain completely. So the person may have to manage with that pain using medications. The same is true if there is severe arthritis of a joint. There are a lot of medical conditions that can cause chronic pain, but there are also a lot of people who have chronic pain and doctors just can't find the cause. Which leads us to a very interesting question. Can chronic pain be caused by the brain? Most doctors don't think of the brain as a primary cause of chronic pain, but it turns out that it is probably very common. Yes, you might be surprised to hear this, so listen on. We know that the brain's danger signal machinery can cause pain even in the absence of a physical injury, especially when there is a stressful situation that is going on. And two things can happen to cause that pain to become chronic. First, the stressful situation can just go on and on and on, causing the brain's danger signal circuits to keep sending messages of danger in the form of pain, such as headaches, back pain, or abdominal pain. Secondly, once pain starts, it's pretty hard not to pay attention to it. The normal response to pain is to react to it, and to react with fear and worry. That's a good response to have if the pain is caused by a physical problem that needs quick attention, such as if there's a fracture or a heart attack. But if the pain is actually due to a stressful situation activating danger signals, that fear and worry response can actually make the pain worse. Our response sends a message to the brain that, yes, there's a problem, and this promotes the brain to actually create more pain. Over time, this can create a vicious cycle that can lead to chronic pain. When the pain goes on for more than 3 to 6 months, we call it chronic pain. In chronic pain, the brain actually learns pain, in just the same way that our brains learn to do other activities, such as play a guitar, or ride a bike, or do a flip. Our brains learn by developing neural circuits. Neural circuits are connections of brain cells that are wired together so that we can do something without having to think about it, or even try very hard. Once you can ride a bike, it's easy. Your brain does most of the work for you. Unfortunately, this same process can occur with chronic pain. The brain's circuits learn pain and keep generating that pain. This occurs in the subconscious brain without our even being aware of it. Often, the brain will develop a linkage or an association so that certain things trigger the pain to occur. Some of these triggers appear to be physical. For example, someone may get a headache when they see a bright light or hear a loud sound. Someone may get face pain when they feel a cool breeze. Someone may get stomach pain if they eat a certain food, or back pain if they bend over. But the stimulus, the cool breeze, spicy food, or bending over, may not actually be causing any pain. Instead, the stimulus is a trigger, activating the brain's neural circuitry to turn on the pain. This is a well-known phenomenon. The Russian scientist Pavlov rang a buzzer and gave his dogs food at the same time. Pretty soon, the dogs began to salivate when they heard the buzzer, even if there was no food there. This is called a conditioned response, and all people can develop these over time. If the stimulus and response continues for long enough, it becomes chronic. So what can we do about chronic pain? Step 1. First, we can figure out if the pain is due to a medical problem or a neural circuit problem. This may sound a bit surprising, but most people with chronic pain do not have a physical injury or a structural problem causing the pain. What? Yes, it's true. People with chronic headaches, chronic abdominal or pelvic pain, or chronic widespread pain, also called fibromyalgia, often do not have a structural disorder. Some people with severe arthritis in the knees, hips, or shoulders do have structural problems, of course, but most people with back pain do not have a clearly identifiable injury. They may have an abnormal MRI scan. They might have abnormal labs, but the right doctor will often help you understand that the findings of degenerative disease on an MRI scan is in fact a normal finding and not the primary cause of your pain. Step 2. Educate yourself about neural circuit pain and the mind-body connection. There are some websites, lectures, and books available so you can learn more. The more you know, the easier it will be to get better. This will provide you with hope that you can get better. The treatment of neural circuit pain is designed to eliminate pain, not merely to help you cope with it. Step 3. Learn how to turn off the danger signal in the brain. The danger signal in the brain is being activated out of fear, The biggest fears are often fears of pain itself and fears of the triggers to pain. So you need to learn how to reduce those fears. You can calm your brain by telling your brain that everything is okay. Thank you, brain, for your concern, but my body is fine, and you can relax. You don't need to protect me so much now. You can breathe and meditate to calm the brain, and you can observe sensations you feel without fear, separating yourself from them and not letting them bother you as much. You can begin to reverse the triggers by smiling at them instead of worrying about them. For example, when you encounter lights, sounds, weather changes, bending forward, walking, you can smile and go forward with joy, knowing that you are going to get better, gradually, over time. This is like when your child falls down. They immediately look at you to see if they should cry or not, based upon your reaction. The subconscious brain is the same way. It is looking at your reaction to pain to see if it should keep creating pain or calm down, relax, and turn off the pain over time. When you respond to pain with the knowledge that you are not damaged and that you will get better, and when you respond with calm and a smile, these are very powerful ways to retrain your brain and reprogram the neural circuits that are causing pain. Step 4. Address any important stressful situations and emotional issues in your life. Reflect on what your brain might be telling you. Do you need to stand up for yourself sometimes? Do you need to take better care of yourself or take more time for yourself? Do you need to set boundaries with a neighbor? Do you need to take some action in your life that you've been postponing? Write about some of the issues in your life that may have bothered you for a long time. This can help to free your mind from past or current stressful situations. Do some things for yourself and for others. Be more active physically. Engage in social activities. Don't talk about your pain, but live your life with joy. In conclusion, doing all of these things will train your brain out of pain and put you and your brain on much better terms. You and your brain will be friends again. Happy again. All MRI scans are abnormal. If you have neck or back pain, you'll probably get an MRI scan to figure out what's wrong. But there is something you should know about MRI scans of the spine. A radiologist will find something wrong nearly 100% of the time. But that may not tell us anything about where your pain is coming from or how to treat it. Let's back up. The MRI machine produces a lot of pictures that slice the human body into thin sections. This technique allows us to visualize anatomic structures from any angle and direction. An MRI image looks like a photograph, but it is actually a computerized image of the molecules inside the human body. These images are superior to CT scans and X-rays. The resolution and clarity of the images is amazing. We can see unbelievably fine detail, and we can visualize the smallest details of normal and abnormal human anatomy. On an MRI scan, we can clearly see the intervertebral discs, spinal cord, and nerve roots. We can see things that we would expect, like normal wear and tear, and things that signify that something is wrong, like a tumor, infection, fracture, or a large herniated disc or severe spinal stenosis. Here's the problem. Once you are older than 20, your spine has 20 years of bending, lifting, twisting, and the scan will show some signs of normal aging. It is the radiologist's job to describe in great detail every single thing that is not pristine on your MRI scan, whether it is relevant to why you are having pain or not. A list of things that a radiologist will find on nearly every MRI scan includes disc desiccation, disc degeneration, disc bulging, small disc herniations, annular tears, mild spinal stenosis, and neuroforaminal narrowing. Here is one way to understand what is happening here. If you look at these two pictures of a young baby and an older gentleman, you are not surprised to see that the skin looks different. Why not? We are aware that the natural aging process causes changes to every structure of the human body, and we are used to seeing our faces and our skin change every year. The spine is no different. If we were to look at the skin of the gentleman on the right with a microscope, we would see evidence of degeneration, loss of elasticity, causing loose skin and wrinkles, growths such as skin tags, and pigment changes, such as old age spots. These findings would all be described as abnormal. However, we could also describe the skin on the right as normal for age. We only describe it as abnormal when we compare it to the image of the baby on the left. Most people, even if they don't have any back pain, will still have evidence of abnormalities on MRI scans. Disc degeneration, bulging discs, and herniated discs occur very commonly, and they may not be causing symptoms of pain. For example, in a paper published in the Journal of Neuroradiology, the researchers found that approximately 90% of people without any history of back pain in the last 6 months still have evidence of annular tears, disc degeneration, and disc bulging at one or multiple levels. It is also the key to understanding the mind-body connection when it comes to back pain. This chart from this article is the most important piece of data in the study. It's a summary of the results of over 3,000 MRI scans of the spine in people who have no back pain. You can see that as age increases from left to right, the percentage of scans that have evidence of degenerative changes increases every decade. Take disc degeneration, for example. It's the top row. 37% of 20-year-olds have MRI evidence of disc degeneration, increasing to 96% of 80-year-olds. Again, these supposedly abnormal findings are seen in people with no back pain. Therefore, the critical task when it comes to interpreting an MRI scan is correlating the findings on the MRI scan with detailed information about where your pain is located, and also with a physical exam. If your scan shows severe stenosis, a fracture, an infection, or a large herniated disc, it may be revealing the cause of your pain. However, if it shows disc bulging, disc degeneration, annular tears, or facet arthropathy, it would be much better if the radiologist described the MRI scan as showing natural changes that occur to the spine with time. Remember, your scan is going to be abnormal, nearly 100% of the time. There are few findings, such as a large herniated disc, severe spinal stenosis, infection, or instability of the spine, that indicate that you should see a specialist soon. If none of these things are present, chances are that your MRI scan is not helping us understand where your pain is coming from. Wrinkles and loose skin do not cause pain. They are normal changes. The same is true for most of the abnormalities seen on MRIs, even if you have neck or back pain. To figure out what the source of the pain is, we usually need to look elsewhere. For example, in the brain, which is where all pain comes from.